Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here, talk about for the weather right here, and I'm sure most of us kind of probably think too is toward that when we think about the weather a lot of times that's another way of how do you want to call us is toward looking outside and maybe to see if it's day or night or something like that. But also, it's like what do you think that whenever you look up at the clouds, what do you think that you'll be seeing there? But a lot of times it's like when we think about the weather, a lot of times are we necessarily going to be thinking about the garden? Maybe if we're going to be thinking about maybe going outside, going for a walk, a lot of times, and but for the most part though, that what do we call that to where that when we do the studies about the signal though, and so it's like in case of a power failure though, that how would we? What are the best ways of how to tell about that whenever it comes to you're using the weather apps and also your understanding about good battery status a lot of times. So it's like that for the most part though, it's like well, making sure that the battery is charged number one, but then also that if you're going to be somewhere where you can get wireless access a lot of times. So when we think about that though, that you may have some devices around the house that are operating on Wi-Fi, right? But then also the signal it's able to get signal by the service tower. So let's just say if there's maybe a service tower like a Sprint service tower or a U.S. Cellular service tower within 50 miles of your location. And a lot of times I do want to know too that if you're the way we think about that though is that when we think about the weather a lot of times, if you do receive weather updates from one of your devices, and let's just say a few of those devices that you're going to maybe receive any storm alerts or weather alerts, even on those devices that that you have at home that are running off of the Wi-Fi connection or anything like that. So it's like you want to know too that that if you have like a tablet or something like that, you might receive weather alerts, maybe like on a MacBook or something like that. So a lot of times, if we were actually do a study about that, to where talk about power, that in case of a power failure, that what are the good ways of how to still receive those weather reports, and also that if you'll still get any of those messages from from the National Weather Service a lot of times, and it sure seems that way that whenever you do get a weather if whenever you do receive a message from the National Weather Service, and I notice that I'm also talking about that maybe phones or other related devices that don't even have that don't even have no service at all to them, but then still that they're able to receive a signal. And so it's like like each time you think about that, okay, does it basically mean is to where the battery just needs to be fully charged, or is it possible that if that your device really just has to be at a location where it's a good range of service? So let's just say that if it's near, I'm like, like a lot of times you want to know too that if you're going to be going anywhere, you look anywhere around the house, and you want to know too that a lot of times that anywhere around the house that you would know that you would get real good signal, whenever you're going to be checking it out, to where that okay, the best signal is either in the bathroom or maybe in the hallway, or maybe like on a lower level or in the upper level of of the house. And so you're 102 that the best ways of how to check up it, like anybody say, is to where we're really that most of the time, I guess the best locations would be like if you want to go ahead and check try is to where the bathrooms, and most bathrooms would be have a good location to where you can go ahead and pick up a real good clear signal. Like if you really needed to go somewhere where you wanted to take a any shelter, like during the severe weather a lot of times. So if we were actually do the studies about that, toward it that if we have any devices around the house such as a radio, to where that you still receive those alerts even during the power outage situation. So if there's any power outages, that occur during a time of maybe the 40 or 50 mile per hour winds or anything, and you want to know too that that you're still going to receive those alerts somehow. And so it's like, yeah, so I noticed that with the devices that I have here, that you would actually receive weather alerts. And we're talking about maybe like on our Fire tablets or maybe on our MacBooks or something like that. So a lot of times, devices with the latest technology, of course, for sure that even whenever the power goes out, you'll still receive messages on that. As long as there's a clear signal on that device, and then if that device is able to pick up any, I don't know if you want to kind of call it radiation or something like that, something to where it's able to receive that data just because of a near service tower. So let's just say if you have any devices that are able to pick up a signal from a service tower within range, and let's just say within that range, it could also maybe be related to about service tower within 50 miles in distance or something like that. So it sure seems that way that looking at any source of weather radar though, and you want to know too how do you know whenever like the storm, the path of the storm that could be moving northeast or so, and it could be have the capability of producing nickel-sized hail and damaging winds and gusts up to 14 to 15 miles per hour or something like that. So let's just say if you got a weather report like that, and let's just say that there was anything about that weather report to where that included anything such as from the path of the storm and all that, but still that let's just say that the nearest service tower was within about 50 miles away, maybe 10 miles away, something like that. So if you do have any devices around at the house that do use data from the forecast right there, but I'll go and show you that. But it sure seems that way that when we think about that though, that in case of a power failure though, that it's like that you're able to charge some of your devices just by looking at that, to where that you look at your device, and if you're going to have a phone or maybe a smartwatch or maybe a Fitbit or something like that that's going to still operate and still tell you messages about if there's any watches and warnings, and if there's any flood warnings or anything like that, any sorts of alerts like that, but a lot of times it sure seems that way, to where if we were to do the studies though, that you receive messages for any weather alert messages, but we're also talking about that in case of the power does go out, that you might find maybe that that smartphone, or maybe if that's that tablet, that anything that's battery operated, really anything battery operated. But let's just say that most of the time that the power does go out, and that more likely would mean that the Wi-Fi is going to go out. So it's like so most of the time that when we think about that though, that there's got to be a service tower. If there's a service tower within roaming roaming areas, and so let's just say that that your device is able to pick up signal from a nearest service tower. And if we're talking about weather alerts though, so a lot of times if it's broadband or something like that, so if we're talking about the National Weather Service is trying to send out any emergency weather alerts to any of the like your residents or the neighbors, anybody nearby, then I guess you say is toward that more likely that you would still be able to pick up service from the nearest service tower, despite about if it's within your provider or not, and then you would still receive that message. And so it's like a lot of times that in case of the power does go out, that we're maybe going to always ask that question to where that hey, that you were able to receive a weather alert still, even though that most of your devices do not work, and whenever the power does go out, that a lot of devices around the house do not work, and so that's why it sure seems that way. That when we talk about backup power and all that, that we're 102 that whenever your phone is charged up, and talk about, yeah, for solar power and stuff, but still that. But I'm just like one to know too that I still receive alerts, and some of those alerts do come to devices that I have around the house that are even, yeah, that there is no service to them, that the only way that they're able to work is by through the Wi-Fi and through the wireless, and so it sure seems that way. That's something that we can also check out too. That in case of a power failure, that we can look at that to where that what devices that are still going to work, even though whenever the power does go out, and so the way I think about too, though, that looking at the weather radar right here, and we're probably thinking too that, yeah, well, you look at the weather radar right there, and you say if that's anything such as show and tell or anything like that, special, but still, on the other hand, that looking at the weather radar map right here, and I want to know too that the number of times that you may have seen the map whenever you're looking up information about the road atlas or something like that, and like picking out about what state is located where, and maybe where that location is or something like that. If you're trying to find directions on how to get somewhere. But on the other hand, I guess to say it's another way of how do you want to show the path of the storm right here. So let's just say that on average, though, that if we were to be looking at the weather radar right here, and at 102, that yeah, we're like it's supposed to kind of give you an idea about the path of the storm, and also about what it looks like for what from where the storm is, if there's any storms heading towards a direction. So it's like so each time when we think about the weather, though, the weather forecast, though, that are we necessarily thinking about to where that for what it's doing outside, and then maybe about that a lot of the temperature and all that, but still day and night. But on the other hand too, that I also want to talk about the battery status. So it's like every time we think about that, though, is like talk about the weather right here, and you want to know too that if you're going to be if you have like a battery charging system or anything such as a solar charger, and you have that handy to where you can charge the battery and still receive alerts, right? And it's like that's one thing that I was like always wanting to know too, is that the devices that I do have around the house, that I'll still receive message alerts on there about a nearby storm coming in. Even though that whenever if the power does wind up going out at a certain time, and then that there will be a radio, there will be a service tower, like a radio tower, and also a wireless tower within distance to where you'll still receive signals. So it's like that. So if we would actually do the studies, though, and a lot of times we probably think it's to a really no, it's all about whenever the devices. Our devices that are going to be just doing our own thing, and that whenever they do their own thing, they're going to be doing certain things, and one of those things is maybe going to be about is to where you're going to be getting a text alert, or anything, any text alerts that are related to about the elections or anything like that. But still, on the other hand, too, that if we would actually do the studies about the weather, though. That how often are we really going to think about that? To where what devices do you have around the house that you use only for the weather reports? And most of the time, no, it's like you turn the TV on to watch the weather, right? But how often are you really going to take out, your makeup kit, or how often are you really going to take out, your smartwatch or maybe your tablet just to be able to but any devices, any related devices, but still, unless if we're talking about any sorts of calendar necessarily, like a calendar, when we're talking about 5 days a week, though, that you might pull that calendar out just to see what time it is, right? But a lot of times it sure seems that way. That when we speak about the weather reports, though, you're likely want to know too you like want to know too that during it, if there's a situation of a power failure, especially, what devices that are still going to work even whenever the power goes out. And so you're likely want to know too that it's got to be by the service tower. The service towers within miles in distance, and let's just say that if you do have a device that's able to radio in a signal from a nearest service tower. So it's like, yeah, that if you're talking about devices that only operate through the wireless service or maybe broadband service or something like that. So that's really something to study into, right? But on the other hand, too, it sure seems that way to where that, yeah, like whenever you do receive any weather reports from on your devices or anything like that, that you would normally, it would make a sound such as beep, 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 beep. And you'll likely want to know too that, yeah, every time you hear the sound of a buzzard or something like that, you might even think that it's your alarm clock. But on the other hand, that no, that's a weather alert, indicating that, yeah, your thunderstorm is heading, northeast at approximately 40, producing the wind gusts of up to 40-mile-per-hour winds. And so, yeah, so whenever we think about that most of the time, that it sure seems that way. That how is it that you look at you think about any devices that you have around the house, even your radios, and like, yeah, if you have a portable radio or anything, and like, yeah, solar powered radio, and you want to know too that you turn the radio on, and most of the time you're able to get weather reports that way, right? And but still, but for the most part, that whenever it comes to having a battery operated device, a lot of times, and it's like, yeah, having something to where that you have for backup purposes, and like it includes a flashlight. And that's why it sure seems that way that you want to know too that you have a device around the house that still works even whenever if the power goes out. So I know a lot of everybody else would maybe want to know too that what devices do you think that you could use that would still work even during the case of a power outage? And I know a lot of a lot of flashlights and radios that do have it, to where it's like built-in, chargers, and so there's different gadgets that you can get. But on the other hand too, that I just want to tell everybody here about about the weather, because I know it seems like it's about maybe every 5 hours or so that it's nice and sunny. Within 5 hours later, and there could be a storm coming in. So it's like, yeah, you want to know too that why is it that every 5 hours or so that the weather could be different. And you check back, and like I say, that, yeah, 5 hours ago that the weather didn't look like that. 5 hours ago that it was nice and sunny, and then now, and then it start getting windy, and then the skies start turning dark, and then it start pouring down rain. So it's like about every 5 hours or so that it could be, it could look different outside. Like you talk about facing the east or facing the south or the north, or the east or the west. And so that's why it sure seems that way that when we speak about the weather, though, that in case of a power outage, though, that doing the studies about our devices, because I know that we probably want to know too that you had devices around the house that you have you have them charged, but then at the same time you may only use one of them to just to be able to receive radio, just to be able to pick up radio signals, or if anything that you use one device around the house, if anything, just to take notes of something important. I'm like, yeah, just for quick notes. I'm like, yeah, just to take notes of something, or if it's anything, is to take photographs of something. So it's like, yeah, that if you're using one device around the house, or maybe anywhere in the car, that you use one device, just to be able to, for pictures or something like that, any other source of media. And you want to know too that if they start making these odd noises, and it's possible that could be a weather alert, indicating that a severe thunderstorm. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that doing the studies about that. And want to know too that even though that whenever the power does go out, that you'll still, there'll still be a message, that, yeah, your device, that you have a good chance of a device, somewhere in the house, as long as it's a, yeah, as long as it's an updated device. And let's just say that, yeah, even if that device is damaged, like everybody else would say too, that we're talking about the most phones, though, that if you recently upgraded to a new phone, and maybe if we're talking about maybe a damaged phone, then it's possible that that phone will still receive the message alert updates, and that's why it sure seems that way. That whenever we upgrade to the new stuff, and you'll want to know too that what are you gonna do with the old stuff, and if anything, you can go ahead and use your other phone to where if you want to maybe put that, keep that in the closet or anywhere that you think that you can use it. Yeah, you'll use it as for your alarm, or maybe for notes, or maybe if anything that you want to use it just for taking pictures or something like that. But on the other hand too, that I'm like, yeah, whenever you upgrade to something new, then that should give you a backup, shouldn't it? But on the other hand, that it's like, yeah, when we think about the weather, though, that they're doing the studies about that. It's like all about the service tower, right? Because it's like when we think about the service towers, a lot of times that we're not just talking about the service that's through our provider. We could also be talking about a service tower within 20 miles, like 20 miles east or south, or somewhere like that you're able to still receive a signal, just by you pick up from the service towers. And so, like, I think a lot of it has to do with, yeah, satellite and also the service towers, to how you're able to receive those weather alerts and weather reports. And but still, that just understanding about the weather here, and half the time it sure seems that way. That when we think about the weather, though, that you want to know too that, yeah, well, whenever you do take a picture of what it's doing outside and you see clouds and all that, and a lot of times you want to know too that, yeah, whenever you get ready to, whenever you look outside and it looks like a nice sunny day, but then by the time you actually go outside, go for a walk, and you see a lot more what's going on outside, and maybe you can tell that the indoor temperature is totally different than compared to the outdoor temperature, and as well as the humidity temperatures, and as well as typical signs, But anyway, about talk about understanding about the weather. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.